Hi, this is Chris Hoy. Thank you for joining me today on Create with Chris. Had a lot of requests and people have commented on my eyes are so cute and adorable. How do you do them? So I thought I would make a quick tutorial just to show how easily eyes can be created with a few simple tips, tricks, and techniques. So let's get started. The secret to creating a perfect set of eyes is using a template. If you use a template, every time the eyes are going to be identical in size, just eliminates a lot of frustration and struggle. Even if you're good at tracing and painting, sometimes they just aren't as round or as even. For this particular one, I used an egg stencil. I really like the egg stencils because they're a little bit smaller at the top and they kind of fatten up toward the bottom. And you can see it fits perfectly. Let me show this way a little bit better. Egg templates are good for smaller eyes. Oh my goodness, I couldn't survive without my painter's tools. These are, and everything will be linked below. These are wonderful for making sure that I have a terrible time with rounds and ovals every time, and it's such an easy, simple solution. And if you want bigger, just an oval eye, this is great as well. So I thought I would start out showing how to paint just a simple egg-shaped eye. And to me, once it's painted, it doesn't look like an egg. It just makes the perfect eye. I'm going to take my template and just decide what size eye I want to use. I'll just stick with that same little eye shape. When you're using it on your surface, I would suggest just kind of taping it in place with a piece of painter's tape. It's just going to ensure that the stencil won't move around and you'll get it exactly where you want it to be. I'm using soft black. I rarely use lamp black for eyes because it's so dark and flat. I won't say I never use lamp black, but soft black just has a little more softness to it and gives a little more color. Using my number 4 Spectacular stencil, these bristles are super soft, which means I'm not going to have to pounce really hard. I'm going to work some paint into the tips of the bristles and then just lightly wipe it over a paper towel. This will remove any excess paint, so when I do stencil, none is going to run under the side edges. Start in the middle and then work toward the outer edge. That way if there's any heavy paint, it's going to be offloaded in the center and the edges are going to be nice and clean and crisp. Perfect. Give this a quick dry. Painting the eyes boils down to 3 steps. The first one is the base coat. Then we're going to add a little shading and finally a little bit of highlighting. And the trick to creating different looks on the eyes is all of the embellishments that are added to that. I'm going to add a little bit of shading either with a white or an aqua sky. I love the soft blues. I've used grays on this snowman. I did use the aqua sky, and we're just going to float right along the bottom and up the side. I'm using my 1/4 inch awesome angle. If you're not familiar with my brushes, I have quite a few tutorials on my channel. You need to check them out. The bristles are just a little bit longer, so I'm going to get a longer stroke. It's easier for me to flip it upside down, but I'm just going to swoop that along the bottom and up the top edge. Already, what a difference that makes. Just amazing. The only other thing I have left to do is add a little bit of sparkle and highlight. I'm using Snow White, my Epic Script Liner, another one of my signature brushes, just a little bit longer than a liner, shorter than a script. I'm going to load it so that I have a fair amount of paint in the bristle. I'm just going to put a comma stroke in the bottom, pull it up the side. Using my stylus to add a dip dot, On bigger eyes, I add a couple dots. If it's a smaller eye, I'll probably just add one. And I dip and dot dot, and that way the first dot is bigger, the second dot is a little bit smaller. And that's basically an eye. It's that simple. I can embellish it with a little bit of an eyebrow. Make sure the paint is nice and thin so it slides freely over the surface. And a couple little eyelashes. I'll zoom in just a little bit more. How simple is that? I'm using paper to do my demos on, and it kind of soaks the paint and makes it a little more difficult for the brush to slide. Okay, so this is just basically an oval eye. When I paint oval eyes, after I paint them, you notice around the eye, let me zoom in just a little bit more. I do put a little bit of shading underneath the eyebrows and around the eye. Just helps to settle them into the face so that it doesn't look like it's just painted on top of the eye. I wanted to share some examples of oval eyes that are just all the same, but yet different. This is a set of book stack ornaments that I painted. Maybe it'd be easier to do it this way. I did use my painter's pal for these. For the gingerbread, I used a bigger size. For the snowman, I dropped down, and for the Santa, even a smaller one. But because I used this painter's pal template, every one of these eyes are identical. Using the template to create the eyes makes them perfect every time, and the results are just phenomenal. There's just no doubt that these are going to look good. I used the egg stencil for these eyes, and I just think they turned out adorable. I used the same concept with the aqua sky. The only other thing I added, let me zoom in a little bit. I did add a little starburst in the highlight sparkle, and it just gives a little more twinkle. Same thing, I shaded around the eye to help make it settle into the face. This little Santa used the painter's pal template. Went down with the smallest one. His eyes are not very big, but they're perfect. And then also I use this for his little nose. So not only is the template good for eyes, it can be used for snow, holly berries. These templates are just phenomenal. I painted a little scarecrow. Same thing. The egg shape for the eyes just works out perfectly. So that gives you a variety of the oval eyes. I wanted to go over to a round eye. It's basically the same, adding a pupil in the center. Using my number 4 Spectacular stencil brush. And one thing really nice about my stencil brushes, I finished with the black so I could just wash it out and towel dried it, and I can move on to the green. Going with the Bubble Buddy just so I can get a bigger size on this, the eye. Once I load up my brush, I'm going to download it over a paper towel just to remove that excess paint. Start in the middle and work it toward the outer edge. Make sure that the eyes are nice and opaque. That way they're going to look solid. Give it a quick dry, and if you're not familiar with the Heat It tool, it's a great dryer, super hot and efficient, and it's really quiet. Picking up a little bit of plantation pine. Just going to shade around the top and the left using my 1/4 inch awesome angle. I may go back and deepen that up, but it does not take much. I'm going to highlight down here in the bottom left with a brighter green. This is celery shoot. Just going to add a little bit highlight in there. Doesn't take much. Make sure it's nice and smooth. The size of the pupil will determine the expression of the eyes. A bigger pupil is going to be more of a contented countenance, whereas a smaller, tiny pupil can sometimes be interpreted as a little frightened. Let's just go with a bigger pupil. And I'm going back with the soft black. And one thing nice about the template, I know exactly where placement is because it's translucent. I can see. Filling in the pupil. Need to add the highlights. Just going in with Snow White. Adding that dip dot in the top left. I use the same concept for the spider, a white eye with a smaller stenciled soft black pupil. I did shade across the top left of the eye with soft black and then added a little tiny Snow White dip dot highlight in the top left. I used the same concept but in the different shades of blue. So in addition to changing the shape of the eye for oval or round, changing color is just a simple dark, medium, and light shades of color. If I want to take it just a step further, I can go back in with a little bit of the aqua sky. Or you can even use white. Keep that very light. But just adds a hint of color in that eye. I think it makes a big difference. I think on this one I would darken that just a little bit more. Because of the way the eyes are positioned back inside of the pumpkin, I switched the highlights from the bottom to the top because I thought that's where the light source would be coming, and put just a little bit of soft black on there just to bring it all together. Another set of eyes is just to combine all of them. So I can do the oval shape and then add a smaller round eye in the center. I guess maybe this is his pupil, but it just combines the two different shapes. Just a fun switch up on the eyes. That is another technique to use. On my monster ride, I used all three. I used the oval with the pupil. I did the round with the pupil. And then I did the oval with the round, and then I just pulled his eyelids down over the eyes. So this is a good example of using all three different shapes of eyes. And I think it's fun to shake it up a little bit. I believe it adds a little more interest. I hope this helps simplify creating eyes. It's just a very easy 1, 2, 3 step. Base coat, put a little bit of shading on, a little bit of highlighting on, and be sure to add those sparkles. Don't forget to embellish them with some eyelashes and eyebrows. Eyebrows are a great way to create expression just in the direction they're turned. They can go from happy to worried to mad, and just by the stroke of the brush. So let me know if you have any comments or questions. I love to hear from you. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a regular, thank you for watching. Be sure to like, hit the bell, and subscribe. That way you won't miss out on upcoming videos. Again, thank you for joining me, and I look forward to our next painting adventure together.